liberty. Now, most of this audience hates taxes. Actually, even many politicians don't like them because taxing people makes people mad. So forever, politicians have found sneaky ways to fund their spending. Roman emperors put less and less silver in coins they issued. That caused inflation. A bushel of wheat that cost 8 Roman dollars by the next century cost 120,000 Roman dollars. Ben Powell, an economist at Texas Tech, and Jeffrey Tucker of Laissez-Faire Book study currency debasement. They say, we better be careful, the American dollar is already going down the tubes. What do you mean? I've feared that, and yet inflation's low.
Are you kidding me? I mean, look over time, right? There's grandmothers rolling over in their graves right now. In fact, there's grandmothers rolling over in their audience seats right now, probably. Any young person has heard someone say, I remember when that cost a nickel. Things didn't all of a sudden get more expensive in terms of the labor we have to use for them. What's happened is the currency's lost its value. It takes $23 to buy today what $1 could back in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created.
But you had to go all the way back to 1913. Paul Krugman will tell you, look, inflation is, 2% a year historically? That's pretty good.
This isn't a big mystery, though, right? The Federal Reserve has created a lot of money with QE whatever now that we're up to, but the banks are holding most of it back. It's not going into the price level because they're holding it as extra reserves because the Fed started paying them interest on their extra reserves. If that actually gets lent out, then we'll see higher price inflation.
That's a form of robbery, actually, of savers. And everybody
Explain
understands
that to people.
No, I mean, yeah, it's a serious issue. You can't get a return on your money anymore from saving. Really, you can't sustain prosperity without saving and investment. And that's precisely what these policies are discouraging.
Let's go back to the Rome parallel. Free trade ruled, they prospered, then they they did what politicians do.
Well, their empire kept expanding, and they were bringing in more people that they could basically loot and bring money back to Rome. And eventually, around 100 AD, they hit the maximum extent of their empire, and there was no one left to steal from. And then they started resorting to other ways to raise money, which was debasing their currency and continuing to take the silver out of their coins, raising tax rates. And over time, this was the downfall of Rome, was a big government destroyed Rome. It wasn't the barbarians. The barbarians came as the government was collapsing under its own weight.
Nero issued coins that were 95% silver. Right. Then the next emperor, this is one of those coins, this was 85% silver. And all the way down to...
You've got a good one. 85% silver. It ended up becoming 1/5000th of the silver content of the original by about 300 or so AD.
This is what governments do when they can't tax people. They start to debase the currency. And this is essentially what's gone on in this country for the last 100 years. About 100 years ago, with the creation of the Federal Reserve, we basically, nationalized the dollar. Put it under sort of socialist-style control, under a kind of cartel arrangement. And we've seen its quality diminish over the 100 years, which is actually faster than really happened under Rome, if you think about it.
But it's hard to get people worked up about this because they look around and they say, by and large, America is doing pretty well.
There's a great deal of distortion in the system. People thought the real estate markets were doing pretty well in 2007. There are surprises around the corner, and especially with a government that refuses to fund itself honestly. This is dishonest funding. The very fact of the existence of the Fed makes the government too big to fail. The politicians don't even have to worry about spending restraint, so long as the Fed is there with its unlimited credit card to always pay for everything. There's no default risk on U.S. treasuries. We have just this unlimited spending. There will be no spending restraints so long as the Fed is there to bail anyone and everyone out all the time.
When inflation comes, then what will the government do? The Romans issued wage and price controls.
The United States government has already done this. Remember when the dollar was finally divorced from gold in 1971, what came right afterwards? A decade of high inflation in the 1970s and universal wage and price controls under Nixon. Now, Nixon was kind of a softie compared to the Roman emperors, because Diocletian, when he did it in 300 AD, he made it punishable by death. And even still, you got all the same bad consequences. Shortages, decreases in quality, products not coming to market, distortions throughout your economy.
And distortions, they wouldn't let you change jobs either to get around the controls. Constantine said anyone who violates requirements that they remain in their current occupation may be bound with chains and reduced to a servile condition. You mentioned Diocletian. When he imposed wage and price controls, he blamed greed. Some people are always eager to turn a profit, even on blessings from the gods. Our shared humanity urges us to set a limit.
I hate it when people use greed to explain something, because greed is constant. It's always there. So that can't explain a price spike or a price decrease when everyone's like, the greedy oil companies are driving up prices. Whoever says, hey, look, the oil companies got less greedy, the price came down. It doesn't work like that. Greed doesn't explain.